This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Consult with a qualified professional before making any investment decisions.
Welcome to the Wire Weekly Roundup. The week in real estate presented in digestible bites. Hold on while our AI hosts take us on another ride through this week's top real estate headlines.
Welcome back, Wire listeners. It's great to have you with us again.
Yeah, good to be here.
Today, we're really diving deep into the currents shaping the real estate market, trying to get a handle on what's driving homeowners and, potential buyers right now.
Mm-hmm.
You sent in a really fascinating batch of reports, and our mission is, to pull out those key insights you need.
And it's quite the stack. We've got Redfin on down payments, World Property Journal on remodeling, spending huge numbers there.
Right.
Then Better Homes and Gardens on trends, Zillow on CPI shelter costs. That's the implied cost of owning.
Good clarification.
Yeah, important for inflation watchers. Then a quick look at Canada, more Redfin on shifting demand, the buyer-renter income gap, also Redfin.
They've been busy.
Seems like it. Plus NAR and Zillow on mortgage rates and that big Narnari remodeling impact report.
Okay. So the goal is synthesis. Find the trends, the maybe surprising connections, and give you actionable takeaways.
Let's do it. Where should we start?
How about we jump right into affordability and financing? Seems like the elephant in the room.
Sounds good. That Redfin survey you mentioned, the one about down payments, it's pretty revealing.
Yeah, the stat that 1 in 5 prospective homebuyers are thinking about selling stocks.
Exactly. 1 in 5. That's significant.
It really is, especially when you compare it to, I think it was 13% of current homeowners who did that.
Right. And only 6% of renters.
Yeah.
It definitely suggests people are having to get more creative, maybe take on more risk to get that down payment together.
You wonder if it signals a shift, Relying on investments like that feels, a bit precarious given market swings.
It does raise questions. Redfin themselves pointed out the risk if stock values drop. That could shake confidence or even derail a purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is happening while another Redfin report shows that income gap widening, right, between buyers and renters.
That's right. Over $50,000 more per year needed now to buy versus rent on average.
$50,000. Wow. The median income needed was around $116,000?
$116,633 to buy versus about $64,160 for renting. It's a huge difference.
And it's not the same everywhere, is it? I remember seeing something about regional differences.
No, definitely not monolithic. Redfin highlighted Salt Lake City and Austin seeing the biggest jumps in that sort of home buying premium.
Okay.
But then places like Cincinnati and Providence actually saw a decrease. So very localized picture.
That's crucial context. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You'd think with all this affordability pressure, it would dominate remodeling decisions too.
You would assume so, wouldn't you? But that Narnari remodeling impact report,
yeah,
it threw a bit of a curveball there.
How so?
Well, it found that for, get this, 89% of homeowners who recently remodeled, affordability was not a factor in their decision.
89%? Seriously?
Seriously, the vast majority.
Okay, but there was a small group, right? Like 5% who basically said they remodeled because they couldn't afford to move.
Exactly. And another 5% where it was a contributing factor, sort of pushing them to stay put.
So it matters for some, but for most existing homeowners doing renovations, it's more about what? Worn out stuff? Wanting a change?
Pretty much. The report cited upgrading worn out surfaces, energy efficiency, just wanting something different, or even prepping to sell later on. It's less about being trapped, more about choice or necessity for their current home.
That's a really important distinction, especially for pros advising clients. Motivations matter.
Definitely. And then layered on top of all this, you have the mortgage rate roller coaster.
Ah, yes. Volatility seems to be the word. Redfin, Zillow, they both flagged that, right?
They did. Rates dipped for a moment there, influenced by economic news, even mentions of President Trump's tariff policies impacting things.
And that brief dip spurred some activity, more mortgage applications.
Yeah, Redfin and World Property Journal noted a temporary jump in applications, people trying to grab that lower rate.
But it didn't stick.
Nope. Redfin showed they climbed back up pretty quickly. Market uncertainty just seems persistent.
So what's the advice then? Zillow had something on that.
Yeah, their expert basically said, look, Predicting rates is tough right now. Focus more on the list price you can handle rather than just banking on a specific monthly payment that might change.
Makes sense. Control what you can control. And NAR put the average 30-year fixed around 6.62% as of mid-April, but yeah, who knows next week.
Precisely. Constant flux.
Okay, so affordability is tight, financing is getting creative, rates are jumpy. Let's pivot to theme 2, remodeling. Because while buying is tough, people are clearly spending a lot on their current homes.
A staggering amount, actually.
Yeah.
World Property Journal figure. $603 billion spent on home remodeling in the U.S. in 2024.
$600 billion, that's hard to even wrap your head around. It shows a massive commitment to existing properties.
It really does. And the Narnari report gives us the why and how. They saw increased demand, 42% of NRI members.
And bigger projects too, right?
Yeah, 57% saw larger project scopes, which kind of ties into another point they made that buyers are less willing to compromise on condition these days.
Ah, interesting connection. So if buyers want move-in ready and sellers aren't offering it, existing owners just upgrade their own place.
Seems to be a big part of it. And the reasons. Upgrading worn-out surfaces was number one, about 27%.
Makes sense. Home's age.
Then energy efficiency at 19%, just wanting a change, 18%, and also 18% planning to sell down the line.
Okay, practical stuff mostly. So for the real estate pros listening, what kinds of projects are most in demand?
According to NAR members, kitchen upgrades are way up there, 48%.
Always the kitchen.
Always. Then new roofing, 43%, and bathroom renovations at 35%. Those seem to be the hot tickets.
And if you're advising sellers on prepping a house,
Realtors recommended painting, first and foremost, the whole house or even just key rooms. And new roofing again came up strong, 37%. Things that give that fresh, well-maintained look.
got it. Now, I thought the joy score versus cost recovery part was fascinating.
Oh, yeah, that was great. The projects homeowners love the most, like adding a primary suite, that kitchen upgrade, new roof, weren't always the ones that pay back the most at resale.
Right. The best ROI was on things like a new steel front door, closet renovations.
Exactly. Steel doors, fiberglass doors, closets. More practical, maybe less glamorous, but they recoup more cost. It shows homeowners often prioritize their own enjoyment over just the resale value.
Which is crucial for agents to understand when talking costs and expectations with sellers. It's not always about the pure numbers.
Definitely not. And how are people paying? Mostly home equity, 54% using HLOCs or loans.
Okay, and then savings?
Savings were next, 29%, and about 10% use credit cards. And a mix of DIY and hiring pros to do the work.
So a really dynamic remodeling scene happening alongside the buying challenges.
Very much so. A key part of the picture.
All right, let's tie some threads together with our third theme, the rent versus buy dynamic and shifting expectations.
Okay. That income gap we talked about, the $50 K plus extra needed to buy, obviously makes that leap from renting much harder.
Yeah, a huge hurdle, getting wider in many places.
But then you see the Better Homes and Gardens report, suggesting buyers and sellers are focused on maximizing value through strategic updates.
Meaning, like move-in ready is becoming even more important.
That seems to be the implication. Buyers stretched thin on affordability probably can't handle big immediate repairs. So updated homes have an edge.
Makes sense. What about the rental side? Is it getting significantly cheaper? Zillow's forecast was a bit nuanced, wasn't it?
It was. They actually saw a potential increase in owner's equivalent rent short term, even though they expect overall rent growth to soften later in 2025 and into next year.
So no immediate relief for renters necessarily.
Not universally, it seems. And World Property Journal backed that up, reporting single-family rent growth was actually up in January, more than usual for the season.
Interesting, especially high-end rentals.
Yeah, they led the way. DC and Chicago saw the biggest year-over-year jumps in January rents. So renting isn't always the easy, cheaper option everywhere.
It really complicates that decision. Which brings us back to those home buyers potentially selling stocks. How do we read that now? Desperation or strategy?
Probably a mix. For some, maybe it feels like the only way in. For others, perhaps it's a calculated move using assets they have.
But risky, as Redfin warned. If stocks drop or the economy gets shaky.
Yeah, that down payment could evaporate. It highlights the pressure points in this market.
Okay, we've covered a ton of data. Affordability, remodeling, rent versus buy. Stepping back, what felt like the most surprising insight from all these reports?
For me, honestly, it was that Narnari finding about remodeling motivations.
The 89% number.
Yeah. That despite all the talk about the affordability crisis, for the vast majority of homeowners actually doing the work, Affordability wasn't the main reason.
It really does show the remodeling market has its own drivers, doesn't it? Less tied to the immediate buying crunch than you might think.
Exactly. It seems more driven by the age of housing stock, desire for upgrades, maybe life changes, prepping to sell eventually, rather than just people being stuck and forced to renovate.
A really key nuance. So, bringing it all home, what's the core takeaway for our listeners, especially the pros navigating this?
I think the main takeaway is just how interconnected but also distinct these trends are. You absolutely have to understand the whole picture.
Meaning?
One, affordability is a massive hurdle for new buyers, pushing them towards perhaps riskier financing like stock sales. Two, existing homeowners are pouring money into remodeling, which impacts inventory and creates opportunities to advise sellers well.
Okay.
Three, the rental market isn't necessarily a cheap haven everywhere, even if long-term forecasts show some softening. And four, underlying it all is economic uncertainty and rate volatility, demanding super careful client-specific advice, not broad strokes.
Well said. So for you, our Wire listeners, it's clear it's a complex landscape out there. Affordability is pinching hard, but homeowners are also actively investing in their spaces. Keep a really close eye on your local market specifics, understand why people are remodeling, and just be ready for continued bumps in financing costs. Hopefully this deep dive gave you some valuable nuggets. What really stood out to you? We definitely encourage you to mull over these findings, maybe chat about them with colleagues or clients.
And maybe one final thought to chew on. What are the long-term effects of this widening buy-rent income gap?
Good question.
Could it lock even more people into staying put and remodeling, further squeezing inventory for first-timers down the road? Something to watch.
Absolutely something to watch. Thanks for diving deep with us today on these crucial trends.
My pleasure. Always interesting stuff.
If you're interested in your own personalized edition of The Wire, please visit us at thewire.fm/custom. We offer market-specific podcasts with all the latest real estate news and market analysis delivered to you weekly or monthly. Own your market with a personalized edition of The Wire, the week in real estate. Thank you for listening.